Right, everyone, we'll just give it a minute or two to hit midday before we get going properly. We'll let a few more people filter in. Yeah, we'll get going fairly promptly at midday, then we can focus on the content of the lunchtime session and get some questions in later. Okay, right, right there, we'll get things going, I think. Great. Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's call. It's great to see you all here today at this lunchtime learning session with the Energy Learning Network and Unity. Just to let you know, this webinar will be recorded, and then we'll make sure that it's also uploaded to our YouTube channels and will be available to view afterwards. We'll advertise it on newsletters and Lumio as well, so if you find today's session useful and you want to go back and review anything, you'll have the chance to do that and share it with anyone else you think it might be useful. Okay, so welcome again. I'm John Taylor, Head of Capacity Building at Community Energy England. My role is funded through the Energy Learning Network, which is a UK-wide capacity building programme funded by the National Lottery's Climate Action Fund. It brings us together with the four other national community energy bodies in the UK, so Community Energy Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, along with Ashton and the Centre for Sustainable Energy as our delivery partners as well. Today we are joined by Connie and Jess from Younity. Um, yeah, we're going to be focusing today on maximising income from PPAs. It's a vital part of the world of community energy. Making and selling electricity is the heart of what we do. Yeah, and you gave us feedback of wanting to know what the current state of the market is, especially as we're moving into this big growth phase with the Clean Power Mission. We'd like to make this webinar interactive as possible, so if you do have questions for our speakers, please pop these in the Q&A. We'll get to those a little later. Before I introduce our speakers, I want to start with a quick intro about Community Energy England. We've been founded since 2014 by practitioners within the community energy sector to act as your voice, to connect up community energy activity across the country and to help put people at the heart of the energy system. Our membership has now grown to over 340 organisations, the vast majority being community energy enterprises, with some supportive stakeholder groups, corporates and local councils as well. All our work is intended to help clear obstacles, create connections between practitioners and stakeholders, and facilitate the work of community energy organisations, thereby benefiting you as a sector as a whole. Our policy and advocacy teams work to make politicians, national and local government officials, and electricity network operators aware of the community energy benefits, and the sector's needs and opportunities and policy obstacles. This helps ensure that community energy organisations are able to create new projects and play an active and important role in the energy transition. If you want to find out more about our current policy work and activities, please take a look at our new fancy website, particularly the policy and advocacy section, which we can link in the chat, or you can navigate your own way there. We flag current consultations and active campaigns and policy responses, as well as finding guidance and how-to resources of how you can get going and play your part. We will cover later on, but we have got a new public awareness campaign coming up called Up the Energy, which is hopefully going to coincide with the local power plan launch as well. Just a quick intro as well about the Energy Learning Network. It's powering forward community energy projects across the UK, helping more groups launch and grow schemes that decarbonise the grid and create instant benefits for local people. The network brings free insights, resources, and connections to existing community energy groups, as well as other organisations looking to become involved in local energy projects for the first time. It also is creating mentoring and peer learning opportunities to make the most of all the wealth of experience within our membership network already. Um, so I think we're ready to roll on to the content. There'll be more about this and other events on our website as well as we go forward. Okay, enough from me, I think, and I'll hand you over to Connie from Younity. Welcome. Thanks.
Lovely. Shall I start sharing my slides then?
Yeah, go for it. I've just paused sharing on our side.
Lovely. Okay, hopefully everyone can see the slides, hear me okay, all of that. So, yeah, thanks so much for having us. Just to say, this is the same presentation that we gave at the Community Energy England conference. I think it was about 2 weeks ago now. So, yeah, about how to maximize your income from your project. Um, Today we're going to be doing some introductions to us and Younity. We've got a brief kind of market update for those that take out PPAs and what's been going on with the prices. There's a couple of industry changes that happened this year, so we'll give you an overview of that. And then we'll go into the two breakout rooms. So with Jess, it'll be the kind of smaller end of the scale. So talking about PPAs, smart export guarantee, feed-in tariff. And then I'll be looking at opportunities for larger sites and talking through corporate PPAs. So, introductions.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So yeah, I'll be introducing Younity. We are a joint venture of Octopus Energy and the Mid Counties Cooperative. So there are two parent companies on the screen there. And then our PPAs, so all of the volume that we contract on export supplies the Your Co-op Energy Community Power Tariff. And that's part of the family of businesses that Mid Counties Cooperative operates. So we've got a lot of cooperatives working together here and a lot of collaboration across our parent companies. Next slide, please. And part of the Younity team, we have 4 members of staff. So we've got myself and Connie, and then also on the call, but you just can't see them, is Laura and Ewan, and they'll be helping us monitor the chat today. And then we also have 4 board members as well that help keep Younity running.
I suppose it's worth saying outside of work, all 4 of us pretty much are involved with community energy in our spare time, I suppose if you can call it that. So I'm involved with Croydon Community Energy and Community Energy London.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'm involved in West Mill Wind, and we've also got Laura, Director of Way Valley Solar, working for us as well. And Ewan has previously volunteered for Croydon Community Energy as well. So lots of spare time being spent on community energy as well. And for some reason it's saying that my mic, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, it was telling me that my mic was muted. And yeah, just to introduce kind of the work we do with our power purchase agreement. So this is the electricity that we buy from community energy groups. So we will purchase energy from over 100 community energy groups, and that makes about a third of the community energy sector by volume. And we purchase from wind, solar, and hydro. And you can see on the kind of pie chart there, rooftop solar, of course, makes up a really large proportion of our number of PPAs. We're really proud to be supporting the community energy sector with routes to market for their export. And in addition to the PPAs, we also offer the community smart export guarantee as well. We don't have any minimum size, which is quite unique for a supplier. So no matter how small your community energy project is or how big your community energy project is, we will find a way to support you. In addition to the PPAs, we also have a number of other streams that we support as well. So we have the Connect platform, which Ewan runs, and he's on the call today. If you have any questions, you can pop them in the chat. And that helps support community energy groups to find skilled volunteers. We filled over 85 of the positions that have gone on the Connect platform, and half of these have been filled with skilled individuals under the age of 30. So helping to support more diversity into the community energy sector as well, and more young people. So we're really proud of that. Ewan is available to walk through the platform and help you list any of your projects on there. So please do get in touch with him if you think that that would be helpful. And then we also have a couple of funding loans and grants as well. So we have a £1.5 million Kickstart loan to help get projects that are ready to go over the line. And then we also have the Powering Communities Grant Fund as well, which is a social impact grant fund. And we'll be relaunching that again in the new year. And that's an exclusive product available to groups that have a PPA with us to help you kind of add more value to social impact in your area. So lots of things going on at Younity, not just the export. And if you think that there's anything else that we could be supporting the community energy sector with as well, please do let us know.
Thank you very
That's everything,
much.
Connie.
Thanks. So I'm just going to cover the PPA market updates. So I'm aware that there's kind of different levels of understanding of electricity markets and things probably on this call, but I guess it's just worth kind of starting with what actually drives electricity prices here in the UK, and why does your PPA price vary so much depending on how long it is and what time of the year you secure your price. Um, the first major factor is fuel costs. So gas is the biggest driver because gas sets the marginal price most of the time. So yeah, there is a very strong link between gas prices and electricity prices. Coal and oil, they have become slightly less relevant, but particularly oil prices can have a big influence on prices as well, and renewable energy costs. So that's a very, very kind of low marginal impact on prices, but it can bring the electricity prices down when there's a lot of renewables, which is good for everyone, but yeah, can bring those prices down. Supply and demand balance. So as maybe you can imagine, weather has quite a big impact. So if there's a particularly cold winter or we see a summer with a heat wave, that can bring higher demand for heating and cooling of homes and businesses. So yeah, that impacts prices quite a lot. Again, renewable generation levels. So if it's really particularly windy and sunny, then there's lots of wind and solar, so it can bring prices down, and vice versa. Prices can go up when they're not as abundant. Outages and maintenance. So when we rely quite a lot on interconnectors, so pipes bringing over electricity and liquid natural gas and all sorts over to the UK, and sometimes they break, they go down. There's issues. People break the cables or animals or whatever. So when that happens, that means we have to then source it from elsewhere. So that can push prices up. And demand can fluctuate, depending on if different industries and seasonal changes, etc. There's a few kind of policy and market factors as well. So carbon prices raise costs for fossil fuel generation. So that's got an impact from that. The kind of in and out of subsidy schemes, so things like the contract for difference, renewable obligations, feed-in tariffs, they can affect how generators bid, and which generation kind of goes into different baskets of schemes and things, which has a knock-on effect. And market rules and reforms, we're going to talk about a couple of those, but if the balancing mechanism changes, and we've got P442, and there's been lots of discussion on locational pricing, zonal pricing. So all of those things can, it's quite a volatile market, so it can tip the scales either way. And finally, looking at the world and a more geopolitical influence. So we get a lot of gas from Europe, and how much that liquid natural gas is available has an impact on prices. Again, those interconnectors, if they're flowing and how they're flowing to us from France, Netherlands, and global events. War in the Middle East has a massive impact. War in Ukraine. Yeah, kind of big global events. So they're kind of the main drivers of why PPA prices and electricity prices change. The next slide is just showing what I was saying about the volatility of the market kind of over the last few years. So this line is 2020. So as you can see, pretty stable year, not too much going on. 2021 is when, we started to see that there was going to be an energy crisis, and prices started to really creep up. Um, and then, yeah, 2022, particularly March, was the most volatile year that we've seen. In March, the war in Ukraine began, and that started to really kind of to impact prices there. And then in August, to the later part of the year, there was still the crisis, but then there was also particularly hot summer, lots of demand for cooling, coupled with the fact that there was not so high availability of renewables. Um, Coming into 2023, it did stabilize a lot. Prices were still kind of on the higher end at the start of the year, particularly, but in the middle of the year, we gas supplies was kind of under control and there was more renewables, so the market wasn't kind of as panicked, and prices really started to become more stable. Again, sorry if it's a bit difficult to see the yellow line, but yeah, the worst of the energy crisis was over, and the market really was stable again last year. And then finally, we did see prices spike up again in January this year. It was a cold winter, and there wasn't as much wind as we thought there was going to be. So again, prices were higher. But I mean, obviously, I know we're in December now, but we have seen prices being stagnant, stable, however you want to see it. So prices tend to go up slightly in winter, but there's been lots of good supply of renewables, and no major interconnectors have gone out recently. So at the moment, we're expecting more of the same, really. So that's just a very whistle-stop tour of the energy prices.
Thanks, Connie. I just want to check because I'm seeing a little bit of chatter in the chat about screens being frozen. I think this is because Faith was sharing but paused and Connie took over. If you're struggling, apparently leaving the call and coming back helps. Or at the top, you might see two banners, one that says Faith Terry Doyle's screen and one that says Connie Duxbury's screen, and you want to click on Connie's. So hopefully that resolves the matter if anybody's struggling. But yeah, for now, we'll just move on to some industry changes. So first up, I'll be talking through license exempt supply, which we're hearing a lot of chatter about in the sector. So hopefully I can give you a bit of an introduction to what this is. So I put on the screen here just the definition of license exempt supplier class A. So there's multiple classifications of license exempt supplier, and class A is the one that's relevant to us, talking about small suppliers. And this definition has existed since about 2001, I think it was early 2000s and written into the electricity order. And it essentially allows a supplier like yourself, a generator like yourself, to act like a supplier without a license under certain restrictions. So not being able to supply more electrical power than 5 megawatts, of which no more than 2.5 of this can be supplied to domestic customers. So although this has existed for a while, it's kind of not been used to its full capabilities, and we've not seen a lot of business models kind of utilizing this. But that's because it was harder to do that, and I'll explain why. If you could move on to the next slide, Connie. So license exempt supply, as I said, is intended for small generators supplying no more than 5 megawatts per hour at any time. That's the interpretation of the legislation. And you're not able to do this if you're receiving FIT or RO export payments, although you can be in receipt of FIT generation payments. In order to be a license exempt supplier, you do need to be working with a licensed supplier to do this, and you kind of have to opt in. So it's not something that can just be added on for you. It's kind of a voluntary opt-in, or at least that's how it's supposed to operate. And both the supplier and consumer in a license exempt supply arrangement would need to be with the same supplier and be settled on a half-hourly basis. Despite all of this being available, it's not been utilised really properly until earlier this year, and that's because it was really hard for the licensed supplier in the arrangement to separate the exempt from the licensed volumes. The reason you would want to separate out the license exempt supply volumes is because they are not charged certain environmental levies. Move on to the next slide, Connie. So license exempt supply volumes didn't need to be levied these environmental charges. However, previously there was no way to separate out those volumes until earlier this year. So in February of 2025, the P442 modification was passed, and that enabled license exempt supply volumes to be properly separated from the licensed volumes and therefore not incur these levy charges. It's taken a little while across this year for business models to kind of come out around this because it introduced a new data notification process and kind of an entirely new business model for suppliers to get their heads around. But we are starting to see some of those come forward now. So that's why you're hearing the sector talk about it a little bit more. So license exempt supply through this process is not levied. Contracts for difference, capacity market, or the new nuclear RAB levies, and a pass through of these savings from the supplier could mean an extra source of income for you. Essentially, it works by verifying license exempt supply by matching generation with domestic and business consumption. Although it is supply, it is kind of a matching element that you're doing here in order to validate the license exempt supply. The only thing to note here is that the levies that you avoid being charged through license exempt supply can be quite variable, particularly the contracts for difference levy. So that means there's no kind of set rate for how much extra you can earn. You might have heard in the sector previously that £50 to £60 per megawatt hour could be saved through license exempt supply. That's the total amount, and that's very variable. So it could be, £40 one half hour, £80 another half hour, and it all kind of depends when your license exempt supply is validated as operating. In addition, it all depends also how much the supplier passes through to you and how much is shared between you and the consumer in that arrangement, and any other kind of third-party data notification agents that are required as well. So it's not quite as simple as just you'll say £50 to £60 megawatt hour. There's kind of a bit more nuance to how the savings are passed through, and that's just something to be aware of. Next slide, please. So in terms of how you can make use of this for your community energy group, first off, you need to decide if you want to be a license exempt supplier. You need to consider this as one legal entity. So if you have multiple SPVs, you need to include them in your kind of aggregate portfolio and decide how you would like to approach this. As I said before, it's kind of an opt-in scheme with a supplier. So it's just something to be aware of, whether you're, as you're signing a new PPA, is license exempt supply included in that, and how you want to make use of that across your portfolio and perhaps optimize it for your portfolio as well. You want to take into account the 5 megawatts per hour limit, and you want to work closely with the supplier to track this. Legally, it's on the community energy group to be responsible for not exceeding that definition because you're the one that's acting as the license exempt supplier. But a supplier should be able to help you make sure you don't go over these limitations. And that's just something to bear in mind as you're contracting with a supplier, kind of how they'll help you with that. It's also worth noting that license exempt supply eligibility could change in the future. And by that, I mean the definition of a license exempt supplier. So right now, as you will have seen from the definition, it's somewhat vague in the sense that we are interpreting it as 5 megawatts per hour. But in future, they could cap capacity, total installed capacity to that, or they could reduce the supply limit on that definition as well. So that's just something to take into consideration when you're looking at financial models of a license exempt supply product, that it's not necessarily guaranteed long term. I'm sure as suppliers we'll be offering this for as long as we can, but it's more a fact that your generation asset might stop kind of qualifying for license exempt supply in the future, and it's just a risk that you might want to consider. It's also worth noting that match rates are not usually guaranteed from the supplier. So by this, we mean the amount of consumption that you can be matched with as a generator and when that consumption is occurring. So obviously for a solar generator, you ideally want to be matched with consumers who are consuming during the day to kind of optimize how much of your generation is going to be considered license exempt supply. And depending how much control and influence you have over who you're being matched with by the supplier, depends how much of your generation can become license exempt supply. And that's what we mean by the match rate. So these are all just some things to consider when entering into a license exempt supply agreement. In terms of ourselves at Younity, we're working really closely with Octopus to develop our own license exempt supply offer. And we're really excited to say that that should be available at the start of the new year. And we're really excited to be have made this offering kind of bespoke for community energy groups, specifically enabling you to pass on benefit to local households nearby your community generation project, and also local businesses as well, if you wish. So we'll be sending out some more information about that soon. If we could pop the together at younity.coop email in the chat, you can drop us an email if you'd like to be added to the register of interest, and we'll let you know when we've got some more information about license exempt supply products to share with you. I think that's everything from me on license exempt supply.
Yeah.
Thanks, Connie.
Am I doing this one? I can't remember.
Yeah, you did at
Okay,
the conference anyway.
Yeah. We've got a couple of minutes before we need to kind of move into the breakout rooms. So I think, as I said at the conference, this topic's a little bit dry. So I'll cover this briefly. But earlier this year, there was a big change to the how electricity generation is going to be measured and settled. So it'll be every half an hour rather than kind of estimated over longer periods, and it'll help us balance and know where and when electricity is being generated and used. So better for everyone, really, especially as we're moving to, more renewables and electrification. Um, as part of the change, as you know, there's many acronyms in the energy industry, and you'll be pleased to know that the ones you've just learned are probably changing. So, meter operator MOP, they're becoming meter operator agent, and then there'll be a couple of different types within that. And metering services advanced (MSA) is the main one that will be relevant for export. And similarly, DADC, data aggregator, data collector, will just become data services. And again, the ADS is kind of more relevant. But yeah, I'm pretty sure these slides will be shared, so you can research all of this lovely stuff after the call. Over the next year, so it was from kind of October onwards, all energy suppliers are migrating at different speeds to be able to yeah to be compliant with these new changes. Essentially, any kind of new connections is going to be the biggest impact. So they now from now need to be set up under these MHHS rules. So, for example, if your group's setting up a new rooftop solar or hydro or whatever, so your import and export meters will need to use agents. So the previous MOP, DADC, now whatever it was, MOA, yeah, all of those, they will need to be MHHS ready. So if they're not ready at the moment, we've got a little table of the ones we think we've just been told are kind of switching over the next year. As you can see, it's quite staggered, but the impact on you is just checking that whoever you want to take your exported energy, hopefully Unity, but other suppliers are available. Checking that the agents that you're using are compliant and the supplier can work with them. So that's a very brief, very brief covering of that, and happy to talk to anyone another time about this. So I think now we're doing the breakout rooms. So just a reminder, Jess is covering smaller sites, so kind of utility PPAs, smart export guarantee, feed-in tariff, and I'll be covering corporate PPAs for larger sites. So I think I'll stop sharing, and then I think what size is considered larger? I think it kind of 1 to 10 megawatts ish. And then, yeah, hopefully Community Energy England will do some magic and we'll have options for the breakout rooms.
It's a bit work finding rehearsal yesterday.
It's always the way.
Yeah, I think if you click and open the breakout room tab down the bottom, it gives you a choice to join one or two. We'll be given a kind of warning of when we'll be bringing back everyone into the main session in a bit. Yeah.
Okay, lovely. Okay. So if I've done this right, corporate PPAs, and you can see this, I think. Yeah. Okay. So, in this session, uh, I'm covering corporate PPAs. So it's a different type of power purchase agreement, a way of selling your power. Um, it's they're different to kind of utility PPAs that you can sell to Octopus, Unity, or other suppliers. They tend to be long-term contracts that are between a renewable energy generator, so for example, a community energy group, and a company or organization that wants to buy or have their power sourced from green energy directly. Um, there are two types, and there's a couple of diagrams up there just to briefly say that there are two types because we do get questions, people saying, can I do a sleeve PPA or virtual or kind of mixing up the two? So um, in this session, we're just focusing on virtual PPAs because we, as well, Octopus Energy, who we partner with at Unity, we don't offer sleeved arrangements. They are a lot more complex and can be expensive to set up, especially for smaller generators. And it involves physically routing the electricity through the corporate supply contract, so additional parties need to be involved, and there's a lot more contractual metering and billing complexities to manage. And the corporate then also pays sleeving fees for the supplier to handle it all. And it can be a bit of a risk to smaller generators. So it's not to say that that there's never going to be an appetite. We're always kind of talking to Octopus about what is and isn't possible, and it depends what people's feedback is. But for the sake of this session, and it's something that we're exploring, I'm going to be talking about virtual PPAs. So this is a bit of a diagram to show how it works, and it can be trying to get your head around it, especially if this is your first kind of introduction to it, can take a few goes. So um, essentially, I wonder if I can get my mouse. Okay, yeah. So we've got the community energy group. So they still, for the purposes of this, they're solar, wind, hydro. Still, if the actual energy flows in to the grid as normal. Um, they will be paid kind of just at the cost of the wholesale market, kind of through a normal PPA that probably most of you know about already. Over here, we've got the organization. So an organization could be one, near you in the town, but it also could be up in Scotland or, anywhere. So it doesn't really matter their location. They will still have a normal kind of supply contract. The virtual PPA kind of sits on top of their normal import energy supply as a financial hedge. So the community energy group and the organization agree together a fixed price, so the strike price, and then this graph at the top of the screen up here. So this, this could be over the period of a week or a day or, a few hours. So as we've seen earlier, the price can fluctuate. And you're using the strike price that both sides have agreed as the baseline. So when the market price is higher than the strike price, the generator pays the difference to the organization. And then the other way around, when the market price is lower than the strike price, the organization pays the difference to the generator. So the generator is so community energy group in this example is always kind of getting the same amount for their energy because it'll be against the wholesale market. For a generator, both sides get price certainty, which is valuable, especially because we've seen the volatility. The corporate gets the REGOs, so the renewable certificates, to kind of prove that that's the source of their power, even though it's not the physical power, it's to show that they're supporting it and backing it. And then community energy group gets predictable income for 10, 15, 20 years, whatever is agreed. So yeah, that's kind of a rough overview of how it works. The part where it was the community energy group selling back into the grid, that still needs to happen for the energy to flow somewhere. So there are a couple of options that groups could do that I've kind of been looking at. So the number one thing that I think that groups will probably be doing is an index PPA with the licensed supplier, e.g. Younity through Octopus. So that's the kind of standard 1 to 3 year contract with the licensed supplier, and the supplier buys um, the power at the market price minus a small fee, so £1 per megawatt hour, for example. And then the virtual PPA kind of runs in parallel with this. This is probably the simplest option and widely available. Lots of suppliers offer indexed PPAs. The supplier manages all the complex balancing and everything, so the group doesn't have to do anything like that. And the generator gets the market-based price. As with all of these things, you're at the mercy of the markets, and yeah, there's not really a floor price unless you negotiate that in. And then, yeah, there's a small fee for the provider, whoever it is with. The second option, these kind of, I suppose, ramp up in complexity, I would say. So you can do balancing mechanism unit trading via an aggregator. So if you're a larger or more sophisticated generators, you can kind of do it directly through the national grid. Or you'd register as a balancing mechanism unit, sorry, through the national grid, and then you'd sell directly into the day ahead market using a trading desk, for example, and can help balance. And yeah, I don't know how I would feel in our group trying to do that, but maybe some people want to take on that challenge, so that's that one. You do have more control and could get more energy, and there's a bit more flexibility to kind of capture the higher prices, but again, it can be sophisticated, and you need to know about imbalance management, and often is kind of viable for 5 megawatt sites and above. And then the final option is selling under a merchant basis directly to the market. Essentially, you're selling directly into the market without kind of any contract. And it's just how it changes every half an hour. So it's complete market exposure, which can be good if the prices go up. You can get the highest returns. But then similarly, if the market goes down or crashes, then that's can have a really, really big impact. And I imagine most groups are pretty risk averse. So I would say that option one is probably the simplest and maybe the least risky of the three options, if you are going to be looking at these arrangements. I have been asked before, is there a risk for a community energy group to enter into one of these agreements? And, I suppose with anything in the energy market, it can be, that graph where it was, if the market goes one way, the generator has to pay the organization. What happens if that happens for a year or, a long period of time? It can be a risk for both. So it's really important when you're kind of negotiating the CPPA, there are risk management, pieces that you can put into the contract. So collars and caps, so you could limit how far the price goes before you stop adjusting. So say if you agreed £90 per megawatt hour, but the market's, going up to 150, you could agree a cap at 130, for example, or whatever it is. Corporates, generally, it would be very risky for them to source 100% of their energy from through a virtual PPA. So to help manage the risk, they might just do it for their kind of base load, what they need. So it could be 80% of what they expect to generate, or 50% or even 25%. A corporate might even do 25% with one community energy group, 25% with another. It's completely up to both sides how it's managed. You can put in things about credit support and margining. I don't know a huge amount about how they work, but there's it's something that can be added into the legal, the heads of terms and the PPA. So yeah, if how does it happen if one owes the other large sums of money and disputes and things like that? You can put that all in. And also some contracts have periodic kind of repricing. So you might say every 3 years or however 5 years, you look at the strike price that you've negotiated, and there's an option to review it. So just so that kind of aligns as it goes on through the 10, 15, 20 years. Why do corporates want some of these virtual PPAs? There's a number of reasons, and even in the case where they might be paying a little bit extra for their energy, it helps them to meet their net zero ESG, RE 100 goals. They're getting the REGO certificates to kind of prove that they're buying from community energy projects. They get price certainty, as we said earlier, and a long-term hedge. So they're kind of at least protected for some of their energy. They know at least they're going to be paying X amount for 20 years, and that's worth a great deal for some organizations. Um, we've spoken to an organization who's really keen on supporting community energy groups bring on these bigger projects and bring it additionality onto the grid. So that's, it's a really great story for them to say that they've supported a new project. Reputation and social value, again, they it would mean a lot to them to say, because we've done this, this group is now getting £1 million over 20 years, and that will, fund their local food bank or energy advice or whatever. So again, the kind of PR and marketing aspect as well. And it can be simpler in terms of, a physical deal for a corporate. We talked briefly about the sleeving PPAs that can be kind of trickier, and they'll have to pay a sleeving fee. So there are a number of reasons why they would want to partner up with a community energy generator or more than one. Um, this is my last slide, is just about, I tried to do a bit of a kind of worked example for a generator, assuming that there's a £1 per megawatt hour supplier fee. So in this case, say the community energy group and the business have agreed £95 per megawatt hour as the strike price. So when the middle row, let me get my mouse. So this middle row, say that the market price is £95 per megawatt hour. Great, you've hit the strike price. The generator will get £94 per megawatt hour because they've lost that £1 fee. Nothing needs to be topped up either way, and the group gets £94 per megawatt hour. Say the market's dropped and it's now 60, because the generator will have an index-linked PPA. We, for example, would pay the group the £59 per megawatt hour, and then the corporate would top up that missing amount, the rest of the money, the £35. So you'd still get the £94 per megawatt hour. Similarly, the market goes up and it's now £120 per megawatt hour. You'd get 119 from us, and then you'd pay the difference between that and the strike price to the corporate. So again, it's the same price again. So that's that £94 per megawatt hour. So as you can see, that it helps to provide a bit of price certainty. What time are we on? Oh, I think we've got a few minutes left. So I'll stop sharing, and if people have got any specific questions about corporate PPAs, we'll answer some now. And then if you've got more general questions about anything that was earlier or P442 or anything else, save them for when we go back in. So this is just about, corporate PPA questions. So Cara.
Thanks. Always helpful to come to these events. So from a council's point of view that procures their energy through CCS, which some of the council does, but is keen to help support and purchase locally generated renewable energy, are we saying that they have to have an additional contract with the community energy organisation to purchase from them as well as their procured CCS energy?
Yes.
Rather than getting CCS energy to do that as a kind of, well, they obviously are brokers, so they work with energy supplies to ensure the council gets the best kind of deal. And so we're making it an additional complication really for councils to do that if they want to purchase local energy, as well as having it through, because there's no way that community energy, as it stands in Somerset, although there are 7 active community energy groups generating, going to produce enough energy for all of the council's requirements. Therefore, they're going to also have to buy off the market. Is there no simpler way of doing that other than them, in addition, getting a supply from a community energy entity or a group, a cooperative of them?
Yeah, so because a virtual PPA kind of just sits alongside how an organization is buying their energy normally, yeah, it would kind of be an additional contract. But I mean, is the CCS stuff is kind of separate, and they wouldn't even. I mean, your import supplier doesn't even have to know that you've got a VPPA with a community energy group. Um, I don't know. I don't know about CCS and whether they would do anything with this. But
I
yeah,
mean, they're saying they are doing local supply. When you look at who the organisations are doing that, none of them are UK based, it seems. EDF being one, obviously, that is close to us that lots of corporations buy their energy from. Whether there's another, conversations to be having with them if they would support that kind of local purchase of supply. But I'm just concerned that councils who do want to support this are going to find it complicated if they have a lot larger state, lots of energy providing, and they go through CCS to be simple that they procure one provider. And therefore, how can we kind of sleeve this in, so to speak, is my key question. But I'm dominating as usual, so I'll be quiet.
no, that's all right. Yeah, we can. Maybe we'll have a separate conversation. But yeah, essentially, it would be a separate thing that the council would need to do with the community energy group directly. Yeah. Chris?
Thanks, Connie. Fantastic presentations. Um, is there any such thing as a draft virtual PPA out in the community world ether that we could borrow from? We're in the process of paying expensive lawyers at the moment, so it'd be nice to have sight of what other people have done.
Potentially. So that's something that we're working on, getting a kind of draft. Well, heads of terms, I suppose, is something we've been working on. But yeah, draft virtual PPA. Possibly. I mean, you think it's a resource that should be used. So I'll take it away and try and find out if there's anything about out at there in the moment. But unfortunately, this hasn't happened very often. These arrangements with community energy groups, and I think there's a gap in the market for it. And GB Energy really want more corporate PPAs to happen with community energy groups. So some sort of central support, templates or whatever are going to be needed. So yeah,
I'm happy to share ours with you, Connie. So let's talk offline.
yeah, sure, okay, yeah, that'd be good. Anyone else got any comments, queries, anything about corporate PPAs? Templates would be very useful. Yeah. Okay. Oh, Cara.
Sorry, me again. And back to that example of having several community energy generators in your area.
Yeah.
Is there a way to do some sort of combined virtual PPA if they create some sort of umbrella organisation, or does it virtual PPA have to be done with each individual community energy group?
I think because it's just a financial settlement, and as long as it's clear, it might depend on the organization. They might want to streamline it and just be paying one or not or receiving money from one organization. Um, I don't know 100%, but yeah, I'll see. As far as I can think of, I don't see why it would be an issue to have different people kind of named on the contract. Oh, Laura, have you got an answer? Oh, you got your mic up.
Thank you, Connie. In answer to your question, Cara, there might be an alternative option that could be looked at as a mechanism for linking up a number of groups to essentially supply your organisation via the sort of license exempt supply route that we've been looking at Younity, where we could aggregate a number of different generators together in some sort of club type mechanism that could supply you potentially directly, and it would be contingent on you having a supply contract with Octopus Energy Business. But we can take that offline if you want to find out a bit more. As Jess mentioned in the main session, we're looking at the launching Younity's license exempt supply arrangement in the new year, and that element of it, which is a little bit more complicated in terms of aggregating generators in an area, will be coming along a little later than that. But that's another option that you could look at rather than necessarily the virtual PPA option.
Thanks.
I suppose if you're already locked into a long-term import contract and can't kind of switch suppliers, then that might be where it wouldn't work. You know, if you're already signed up with a supplier as part of a basket, for example, and you
Yeah,
can't switch easily, then then
that is
yeah,
the challenge with, corporations like councils, which I'd love to be able to unpick that. But
yeah,
anyway, to support others is a good thing to look at. But I really want to see how we can support councils to generate purchase agreements with their
yeah.
local community energy.
Ellie said, can one legal entity, e.g. a council, be both a generator and a buyer of PPAs for different sites? Yeah. So yeah, a council could own a solar farm, for example, and then, well, then be selling through a corporate PPA to a business or something in the area, um, or could be do license exempt supply and potentially have a bit of a club for domestic as well. So yeah, there are lots of different options and yeah, lots to navigate, I think, in terms of route to market. But we're hoping it's getting easier and more profitable for these kind of projects. Is Unity involved with corporate PPAs? Yeah, well, so we are very, very close to kind of getting board sign off that we're going to be looking at how we can kind of facilitate these to happen and potentially kind of link up some organizations with groups that might be interested in this. So yeah, watch this space. But yeah, I guess that's kind of why we've been looking into it and presenting on these pieces. Ellie said, what
All right, welcome back, everyone. Yep, I know some of you were mid-answer there, but sorry about that. Great. So, hope you found all those breakout sessions useful. Um, we've got plenty of general Q&As lined up in the chat as well, so I think we'll use the rest of the time to cover off some of those that maybe they were covered in some of the breakout rooms as well. But let's have a quick scan through. One question I did spot is, did the recent budget changes to eco and the ROCs being removed off electricity prices, do they affect any of the kind of attractiveness of exempt supply?
Yeah, so with eco, no, but with the rocks, yes. So essentially, the amount of money that you would get from the levy savings on rocks has decreased. So about 75% is going on to general taxation, and 25% is staying on consumer bills. So that bit will still be able to be exempted. We're working through the legislation and kind of accounting wise how that all works on our side as the supplier. But in principle, yeah, the kind of amount of levy savings available from rocks has reduced. I don't have the exact figure of kind of the proportion of that 50 to 60 pounds per megawatt hour estimate that's been banded around. I don't have that, but I think it was Zach that asked the question, and I can follow up with him on that figure once we've got a calculation.
Okay, great. There was a question that Connie was halfway through answering, which I thought was quite useful. Do we know what role GB Energy might be playing in this marketplace yet?
is this specifically for corporate PPAs?
I think it was in context for that, yeah.
Yeah. We have spoken to GB Energy and they really think that more community energy groups doing corporate PPAs will help kind of accelerate towards the 8 gigawatt target by 2030. Um we you know we did ask them about kind of a floor price for community energy projects, and she said, that it's not really in their remit as GB Energy to look at that or to do much about that. So, in terms of supporting PPAs, I don't know. I mean, they're still kind of getting set up, and it hasn't, obviously we haven't had the local power plan, but the main thing that they said was that it would be great to see more corporate PPAs because they think it would support more additionality onto the grid from community energy projects.
Okay, thanks. Another question we get asked fairly regularly is what PPA prices should our members be modelling when they're over, say, the next 10 years when they're kind of estimating their business plans. Is that something you can advise on, or other people in the sector you would signpost them to?
Are these just for kind of standard, utility PPAs, like just selling into an
Yeah,
investment
so should we
taker?
be assuming £60 a megawatt hour or £90 a megawatt hour, and in terms of
I mean, yeah, if I knew the answer, I'm sure I'd be very rich. But I think broadly over the next few years, I don't think I don't think we're expecting prices to, unless there's another kind of major global event or, more things. Yeah, maybe kind of 60, £70 per megawatt hour at the moment. But yeah, it's really difficult to know. Plus if you then do the license exempt supply, you'll have a bit of extra uplift on that. And maybe if you do a corporate PPA, you can model a higher price. So yeah, it's tricky.
Yep, that question employs a lot of people, I'm sure. Um, there's an interesting question from Cara in the list here as well. How can we demonstrate the wider benefits to investors as renewable energy generation reduces in cost compared to kind of more traditional polluting forms of energy generation? Um, what's the kind of extra edge we can kind of show people to back community energy projects?
Um, Again, I mean, I spoke about it in my one. I think it's really getting the social impacts, displaying those loudly and proudly and saying how many people, data is really important, how many people you've helped, doing case studies, um, and hopefully the fact that it is local generate, like, solar panels on a local school, for example, saying that the school's saving money, the pupils are getting workshops, yeah, it's, I think just the comms around it, just being really clear about the social benefits of community energy projects. And we've got lots of case studies on our website of some amazing stuff that groups have done, as do Community Energy England and Scotland and Wales. So yeah.
Agreed. I think don't underestimate the value of your story. And when you take a step back and you think about community energy groups in the sector that have been really successful, you're probably just thinking about the ones who have marketed their story the best, because that's how you've come to learn about it. Also, from some conversations that we've had with groups like FX who know about investment in this sector, one of the things they've talked about is the fact that investors really like to feel like they're making tangible impact and kind of know what they're helping create happen. And that's the story that community energy can offer. So that's something, really to think about is, how you market that share offer and how you enable people to get a feeling like they've added to the world. I think that's what's really crucial when you're investing in kind of private projects. You don't really get any tangible sense of how your money or how your involvement has helped impact that. And that's what we can change as community energy groups.
Okay, great. I think we've got time to squeeze in one last question, then we best wrap up because we're coming close. One for Stuart Oates, just come in the chat. Do you deal with PPAs in a local generation setting where it's all within the same substation zone, so similar to the energy local model? Are there extra benefits of doing it that way?
We do. So Octopus were kind of the first partner of Energy Local, and we've still got, I think it's 7 Energy Local clubs that have got the number of customers in the clubs. I think, I mean, that's the only kind of thing that we have at the moment in terms of the PPAs on the local kind of substation. Obviously there's things happening with P441, so I guess we'll see if and when that, that those changes and how that impacts. But we're hoping that I think P442 will be a bit, simpler, and maybe will help kind of the local energy piece as well.
Yeah, definitely. If you wanted to kind of specifically be able to meter that generation consumption under that primary substation, it is P441 and the kind of energy local model that you're looking for. But if you wanted some, an interim solution, or that was perhaps too much commitment for you, definitely worth looking into a license exempt supply model. We're kind of developing one that is custom built for community energy groups and would enable you to kind of focus your benefit onto a specific subset of consumers. So if you did have a few local individuals in mind, that is something you would be able to do with the product that we're developing. So worthwhile keeping an eye on when that comes out in the new year, and that sort of model you could operate. So although it's not local energy supply, it would provide you with a mechanism to pass on benefit locally if you wanted to.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Yeah, I certainly think, yeah, we're generating all the electricity because we want to electrify heat and transport and all the other things as well. So I'm sure there'll be future events where we look into doing more of these projects all together at the same time, both supply and demand. But yeah, no, that's an excellent introduction and update of where we are with the current PPA market. So yeah, thanks to Connie and Jessica for joining us today, and everyone who has participated with your questions. The recording will be available at ASAP on our YouTube channel if you want to refer back and share it. I just want to make you quickly aware of some of our current projects and resources and upcoming events that we're putting in place to support your organisations. We've got a live project up in the northeast of England at the moment where we're running Seeing is Believing programs and networking events to help stimulate a bit more activity in that part of the country. And a lot of the kind of local authority collaboration that we're leading on will hopefully have lessons for the rest of England as well. Community Energy Go is a new service that we're running in partnership with Ashton and Centre for Sustainable Energy, where you can approach us to access free pre-application funding advice support, where we can team you up with some experienced community energy mentors and practitioners to help you do more, get advice on your project ideas and do better quality funding applications. And then we've got another webinar coming up this week as part of the ELN with ethics, where we're going to be looking at the next phase of community energy, looking at rooftop solar. So looking at the potential for supermarkets and warehouse roofs, and making connections with the likes of the UK Warehousing Association, Big Solar Co-op, and hearing from them of how that's all stacking up energy for all will be on that call as well. And then we've got our new public awareness campaign, Up the Energy. So we're currently seeking people to co-sign letters of support for that and donate. We're aiming for some big events and kind of splashes in Westminster next year and then getting out into the public. So keep an eye on that. Next slide, please. So again, with our new updated website, our national map is still there that showcases all the energy projects and locations that are active around the country. Get over 5,000 views per month of that. If your project isn't on the map yet, it's a great way to get visibility and add to the momentum. So you can, add your projects there. We've got a growing range of resources on our how-to pages on our website as well. So from how to get started right through into the more advanced, deeper dives of PPAs and managing share offers, things like that. It's all there, and we'll be improving that in the coming months as well. And so before we sign off, I also want to close today's event by reminding everyone that Community Energy England is a membership organisation working to connect and give you a voice. If you're not already a member, please do join. It's an amazing time for the sector, and the next 12 months are going to be, kind of a big shift, I think, in everything that we're all working towards. So fingers crossed for new news coming out in the new year. Our membership is open to any organisation that shares our vision, is looking to pursue and support community energy. And our growing membership comes from across communities, public sector, third sector, private sector. Everyone's welcome, and all involved in increasingly varied range of projects and services. If you're not yet a member, please do consider joining. There's application forms and details on our website. Together we can be stronger, and we can share more learning, and the more connections we can make can grow a bigger network as well. So thank you all for joining, and any feedback and polls, gotta just before you all dash off, be great to get some feedback on today's session, and then any other suggestions for future events, do get in touch by email as well. Lots of interest in the Younity PPA product, so we'll be collecting advertising that as soon as it goes live as well, and sharing details with people who want to hear more. And that's all from me, I think. So yeah, thanks, Connie. Thank you, Jessica. And yeah, look forward to the next one. And yeah, I think we can look at sharing the slides as well. Yeah, if people didn't get a chance to see both breakout rooms. So